When creating a multicolored design for rhinestones, the same rules apply for text or for objects that create a design or a custom design. When you are working with a program such as Corel and it's not an automated program that specifically simplifies making things for rhinestones, then there is a little bit more work involved. But this is how you would set up for a multicolor design to successfully make a rhinestone template. So I'm going to show you with just basic text because the same rules apply. So I have on my screen a word. To start making the stones, first I want to make sure that I understand which stone size or hole size I need to make in CorelDRAW. So I'm going to be using the SS10 stone size. So it's telling me for rhinestones my hole size is 3.1 millimeters. So now I know that I can make the correct circle size so that the stone falls correctly in place after it's cut off the stencil material. So to make my circle, I just use my ellipse tool and simply click and drag my mouse and then type in the size that I need, 3.1 millimeters. Then I make a duplicate of the circle by left clicking my mouse, dragging, right clicking my mouse, and then use my blend tool to blend from one stone to the other. And tell Corel that I want the path of my blended objects to be this warriors. And I want it to blend along the full path. And then I have to say how many objects I want within that path. So let's see what 150 stones, which isn't enough. So maybe 200. And I'm looking for, you know, a decent amount of distance between the stones. I don't want too much distance between the stones, but I don't want them too close together either, because the actual blade will cut through the stencil material and the stones could get caught up on that. And I do have other tutorials online that show putting text on a path and broken up in segments, more in-depth explanation so that the text looks a little bit more cleaner, easier to read, with a bunch of stones creating what it looks like. As you can see, some of these stones aren't falling correctly right on the edges of the corners, so there will be some editing needed to clean up this file. But for demonstration, I'm just setting up for a multicolor design. We'll use this as a demonstration. I may want to fill it in as well, depending on how I would like to proceed with my design. So now I need to make a second layer, and I'm simply going to do that by using my interactive contour tool. That's the easiest way to make a two-color in text or any object. So if I select the word, which is just an object, and I select my interactive contour tool, I can say I wanted to create an additional layer to the outside. So at the top here I have options inside to center, but I want to go to the outside. And I want it to go a certain, you know, so many layers. I have contour steps here. I can make multiple layers to the outside, but I actually just want to do one. And then within the contour offset box, I can say how much distance I want between the layers. So I'm going to say I want 0.3. You want a good amount of distance because, of course, you know, you have to accommodate the stone width. Plus, if you want a gap between the colors of stones, that may affect how much of a distance you want between the two objects. Now I have to break away that contour group. So I go to Range and break contour group apart. So now it's considered its own layer, its own object. And I can assign it its own color. And then I can do the same. And let's say if I'm using a different size stone, then I want to reference, say I want to do an SS16 on the outer rim, that it's a 4.3 millimeter hole. So I want to make sure that I make my circle 4.3 millimeters. Make a duplicate by clicking on the original circle, dragging, and right-clicking my mouse, and then using my blend tool to make a blend between the two objects. Now the new path for these circles is this green line. And I want it to blend along the entire path. And I'm going to need more stones than that. That's way too many stones. They're overlapping. So let's see, 175. Still too close. Let's try 150. And that's pretty cool because most of the stones are falling within the corner. So I got kind of lucky with that one. The inner part of the warriors is a different story though. So first, let's just do some minor cleaning up just to show for reference, and then get the file set up to actually cut in stencil material. So first, this green layer here is its own layer, its own color. They're going to be completely different color stones, so I need to separate it from the original. And then I can focus on getting it ready to cut just that layer. So I want to break away the stones from the path, because this line that we were using as a path, actually you don't want to cut. So if I select the stones, my status bar at the bottom of the screen will say Blend on Path Group on Layer 1. So now I have an option under Arrange to break that blend apart. So now I can click off my object and then select the line of the path that the stones were following and just simply delete it. Hit delete on my keyboard. And then here's a good example of a circle two circles that are overlapping, so you will have to pay attention to that. So now I want to treat each individual circle on its own. So if I select the circles and go to Arrange, I can ungroup all and then start treating circles as their own. I can start moving them around, deleting them if I have to. I may just want to get rid of that one altogether and then move this one up. Just depending on what you need to do to make sure that this file will cut correctly. And it's simply just selecting certain parts of the design and getting rid of anything that's going to cause conflict in production. So I'm just going around and deleting some circles that are overlapping. And I would get more in depth into, if I actually were going to produce this design a little bit more in depth, I may actually have broken up every single line in the first place and created paths along each individual segment to get more crisp, clean lines with corners that always have a stone on the edge to show definition of the wording or the object. But just to show that we need to break up these layers in general for multicolor design is the purpose of this tutorial. So now that I've broken everything up, and let's say I cleaned everything, I can recombine the layer. So if I just go to my Combine, or you can go to Arrange and Combine, however you want to get to that process. And then I'm just going to assign it again a color just to get a visual. And then at this point, I would want this to be its own file. So I would get rid of this Warriors. You know, I would clean that one up as well. But in regards to this color of stone on this design, I'd want to send this file to the cutter by itself, and then put it on cut it off the stencil material, put it on the stencil backer board, and then brush in whatever color stones I want for that outline only, and then mask that and pull up the mask that only has that color stones on it. And then for the inner part of Warriors, I would do the same process. I would send just that part of the file to the cutter and brush that color into that wording, and then I would line up the inner part of the Warriors inside of the outer part of the Warriors, and that would create one transfer that has multiple colored designs.